So maybe first, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, of course. Hello, I am Seren and I'm from England. I have been teaching English online for 5 years, and I live in Mexico at the moment, and I have been traveling around Mexico and Latin America for the last 6 years. And yeah, and what else would you like to know about me?
I want to ask, would you identify yourself as a digital nomad?
Yeah, I think so. It's a word that has become more popular recently, especially since 2020, that lots of people now are digital nomads. And I realized that, yes, that's something that I have been doing since 2018, that I have been a digital nomad. So yes, even though at first I didn't consider myself as that, now that the word is more popular and more used, I think that I can call myself a digital nomad. And probably somebody who's been a digital nomad for a couple of years longer than a lot of more recent people who are now living that lifestyle.
So could you tell us how that kind of lifestyle has impact your life?
Yeah, it's a big change for me. When I was living in England, I was working in a hospital, helping people with their speech if they had problems with their brain, and now I can move around and visit different places as I want. I have explored. I think I have been to, I don't know exactly how many countries in the last 6 years, but maybe around 10 countries in the last 5 or 6 years. And I feel like I can move around. And if I think, I want to be by the beach, I can decide to be by the beach in 1 week's time, or so I can move around and feel more free. I also can meet many interesting people and live a life that is less planned, less stable, but it's more exciting.
So as you said, you traveled a lot of country. So how do you explore different cultural differences?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely, there are a lot of cultural differences between England and Latin America. The people are very different, and obviously the language is very different.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've had to learn a new language in order to be part of the culture and to be able to make friends that are living in those countries. And that's really helped me a lot, is learning Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, if you traveled another country, so you would like to learn the new language, like Spanish. So a part of Spanish, did you pick up other languages?
Yeah. From learning Spanish, it was quite difficult at first when I arrived in Mexico, because I didn't know any Spanish at all. And so I took some classes, but every day, and I was really practicing as much as I could. And I found that whenever I could, if I could try and speak that language, even if I knew I wasn't speaking very well, I just wanted to practice as much as possible. So I found that speaking to taxi drivers was really nice because they want to talk and they don't mind if you make a mistake. And I don't feel embarrassed if I make a mistake um, because they don't judge me and I might not see them again. So it was a really good time to practice with speaking to the taxi drivers. And also that can help to learn about a new city, a new culture. I would ask the taxi driver, if I arrived in a new city, I would ask the taxi driver on the way to my hotel or my new apartment, I would say, oh, what kind of food is famous in this city? And I would be practicing the second language, but also learning about the culture of the city and, oh, what would you recommend? And taxi drivers, they know a lot. So, so I found that was really helpful for learning the language and also to find out about the different cultures of the cities.
In your opinions, what are the key cultural differences between England and Mexico that you have noticed?
I think there are a lot. In general, I noticed that the people in Mexico are very outgoing people, and so often in a small town, people say hello to each other on the street. They'll say good morning or good afternoon and acknowledge each other in the street. And in England, especially in I think colder countries, people are more closed off, and you walk past somebody in the street and you pretend that you haven't seen them. And so that's something that I really like about the culture here, is the friendliness and the acknowledging and saying hello to somebody on the street. It feels nice. I find that in general here in Mexico, the people are more outside. People do things out on the street, or there are more people in parks just to be outside. Whereas in England, in the summer, yes, people go to the park and people are outside, but the culture is still more indoors. And of course, the weather is not so nice in England. So a lot of the time people stay inside to keep warm, to stay dry. And so the culture is more indoors. Yeah, so there are quite a few differences. Yeah, there's an interesting difference that I have noticed between England and Mexico in terms of being in a restaurant, and that in England, if you want to get the attention of the waiter, you will maybe just make eye contact with them and try and be very subtle, and polite, and you'll maybe look at their eyes and hope they come, and maybe they don't notice you. And so, but you can't really do anything else other than, to very gently. But in Mexico, they say like that, and they'll get the attention of the waiter, and even maybe sometimes make a sound or say, oh, hey. And for me, when I first arrived here, I thought, oh no, that's so rude. But then I realized it's not rude here. It's just the culture is different. But I found that very interesting, how at first I was embarrassed. I thought, oh, because the culture is so different. But now I find it normal, and I have to stop myself from doing it when I go back to England to get the attention of the waiter. I'm more forward now.
In China, we also do that to get attention from waiter. We just say, "Hi, waiter, come here." So, have you noticed any specific cultural challenges in teaching English online to students from different countries?
Yeah, most of my students are from China. And so it's been very interesting to learn about the culture of China through my students. And I think the differences in teaching, I feel that Chinese people generally, when they're learning English, even the children, they really try very hard, and they will. Even I have children, Chinese children, who are 5 years old, and they look so small, but they can talk and they can read and write in English already. And I think, wow, in England, in my school, we didn't start to read and write in English until we were 6. So so it's very interesting for me that in China, a lot of the children are very advanced, especially the ones who can take extra classes. And that I found very interesting, that yeah, the children are really, they work very hard. And often I ask them when they have time to play, and they say, well, I have this class extra, then this class extra, then this class extra, then maybe I can play on Sunday. And I think, wow, they really work very hard. And I think and it shows, because they're very clever, and they can talk about very advanced subjects. So I think that's a difference that I have noticed with the children. And with when I'm teaching adults, I notice that sometimes, I think maybe because the culture in China is very respectful. And a lot of people have heard about the difference between, some cultural differences between the West and China. And so they will ask me, but they will be maybe they will say, oh, I don't want to be rude, but can I ask you, is it true that in Europe and America, that is that people will marry just for love, even if the husband doesn't have a good job, or things like that? And the people want to really learn about Western culture, and because it's so different from Chinese culture. And yeah, and I found that very interesting as well, to see how Chinese people are very, very respectful, but they're very curious as well. They want, is this true? Are these differences true? And so that was very, very interesting as well, to see how big difference there is between the cultures. And so much so that some people, they don't believe it. Is it true? Really? I can't believe this. So I think the cultural differences are many. And so it's really good to speak to somebody from a different culture, to be able to learn more about it, and also to think more about your own culture, and to think, wow, okay, there are people who live completely differently. How interesting.
So, like, do you need to design your teaching approach, like between students who from like different culture background?
Yeah, I think it's important to be aware of the cultural background of who you're teaching. And also, and it depends as well on the age of the student. But definitely, I know for teaching children, the children, they enjoy to be excited and stimulated, and to be, yay, hello, and to be very happy and friendly. I think it's also important to be like that with the Chinese children as well, so that, because they do work very hard, and usually they have their homework books there, even when they have an English class. And so it's really nice to make the class as fun as possible, because they have so many classes, that it's nice to think that they can look forward to my class and think, oh, okay, this can be fun, and we can yeah, we can have a laugh. And but also I noticed that yeah, I think that's very important. And then with adult students as well, it's important when teaching certain words and phrases to give the context of when to say these phrases in which context, so that they can understand more about my culture as well. Because from knowing that, okay, maybe in some other countries they don't know much about the Western culture, or they want to learn more about it. So teaching a phrase and then saying, okay, well, you can use this when you're with your friends, but not with your family, or those kind of things is really important to be able to give the extra information. But yeah, I think that it's definitely important to consider the cultural differences of and backgrounds of people. An example of one that I had noticed with Chinese people is what sometimes to say yes, I don't know if I can do it, but it's like something like that to say yes. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I was always taught that in England that can be seen as sometimes rude to just say you know. But I know that in China it's not rude; it's just a way of saying yes. And so it's important to know about that cultural difference, to not think, well, this person is being rude to me by not answering properly, because in England we're taught, you have to say yes or no. You can't just make a noise, because if you say that, if you do that, then it can be considered rude. So it's really good to have an idea of the differences. Yeah.
So, like, you said, Chinese young children, normally they can speak good English. But what about adult students, like around like 20-ish?
Yeah, I think that also there are many people who speak good English, but I notice, and this is also an important difference that I have noted, is that often they will be able to understand or read and write better than speak. And I think that's maybe from your generation in the schools, the teachers didn't ask the students to speak so much. It's just listen to me, write this down, and remember it. And so I noticed that even though a lot of people can understand English or be able to write well, that the speaking side of things is more difficult for them, because there's not as much practice in the schools of speaking. So a lot of Chinese people feel embarrassed to speak, or it's almost a new skill to practice, because a lot of people around your age, they haven't had a lot of practice of speaking English.
So what kind of suggestion you would like to offer for those students who are
yeah, I think I would tell them to not be embarrassed about making mistakes, and to just try. And it's something that you can only get better at by practicing. So excuse me. Yeah, so I think that if you can speak English to somebody who speaks English, especially to a native English speaker, or somebody who has experience of teaching English and can listen and gently guide you, I think that can really help to improve your spoken English. But yeah, my advice is don't be shy and don't be embarrassed, because everybody has to learn at some point. It's something that I've been the same when I was learning Spanish, that, oh, what if I make a mistake? Or how do I say this? I want to plan my sentence before I say it. But actually just say it, and it really isn't so bad if the other person doesn't understand. You can be ready to, okay, how can I say this differently? Or, and then the more you do it, you will lose the fear, and you will just speak a lot easier. Yeah.
I was like that. I was very shy when I spoke English. Yeah, I was like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And do you still feel shy now, or do you feel more confident?
I don't feel shy if I speak English. Okay, I don't mind to make mistake as long as I can communicate with people in English. As long as they can understand me, that's fine. So
yeah, it's functional. As long as it does what you need it to do, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Yeah. Good.
As a digital nomad, you need to balance your work and your personal life because you need to move a lot. So yeah, how to balance that life?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's been something that I'm still trying to find a good balance, because of teaching in Mexico, but to Chinese people, the time difference is quite a lot. So I work very early in the mornings or in the evenings. So to balance my social life, my personal life, my work life, I have to. Sometimes I'm tired, and so then I will change my sleeping pattern a little bit, and I will take a nap in the daytime to make up for if I want to see friends in the evening, but then I have work very early the next day. Sometimes I do need extra sleep, and to travel as well. I think that's also something that at first was a little bit difficult to go to a new city and think, oh, I don't have friends here. How do I make friends? Where do I go? And generally, I found that I can make friends, and that it just takes 1 week or 2 weeks to settle into a new place. And now that I am more in Mexico, I often go back to the same cities as I have been in before, or the same places, the same beaches. And so now I have some friends who I already know in lots of different places. And also, as a digital nomad, I have met many other digital nomads. So often I will meet somebody in one city, and then a year later in a different city, I'll see, oh, yeah, you're in the city too. So it becomes easier to make friends, because I will know lots of people who are traveling because of being in the similar lifestyle. So that's been very helpful to find some balance of social life, and to be able to also to focus on my work, and to always to be able to teach. And also, something that I have found is important is to make sure that the internet connection is good, because that is something that can be very stressful. Last year, I was living on the coast of Mexico about this time last year, and there was a hurricane that came, and so all of the internet was down, and I couldn't go anywhere that had good internet. And I thought, oh no, I don't know if I did the right thing coming here at this time of year. And so it's a case of learning about which time of year is a good time to go to the beach, because hurricane season, maybe the internet will not be good for maybe 3 days at a time. And obviously I need good internet connection. So that's been something that I have found that I need to plan ahead and check the internet connection and also check the weather, not just check the internet connection, but think about other things then that might affect my work.
So I would like to ask you, like, a part of the technological issue you want to remind us. What are other like advice you would like to give to the young Chinese people who are interested in being digital nomads and traveling the world?
Yeah, good question. I think planning ahead is very good, and to make sure that, you know, if you are in an Airbnb or if you are renting an apartment, to check the internet speed and to check the location of your wherever you're going to stay, because that makes a big difference in a city or where you are, if you are in walking distance to interesting places, or if you have to get a taxi everywhere. It can really change your experience. But also, I would give the advice to be flexible. Plan ahead if you can, but being flexible, and to be able to change your plan and think, okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I'm going to change this. That's really important, because you can't be sure of things when you're traveling. It's not the same as being at home, where you know something is going to be right and you can do something. Sometimes things don't work out, or things change, or maybe your bus gets cancelled, or the flight is delayed, or you have to go to a different apartment. Those things can be stressful. So if you can have the idea, okay, maybe I need to be flexible, and maybe, okay, I just need to change something and hope that this works out better, then you will have more fun, because you're able to just, okay, well, what can I do? This has happened now, rather than being stressful and trying to stay to the original plan, even if it doesn't work. That can really make things more difficult. Definitely, I traveled in South America, in Colombia and Ecuador and Peru, and sometimes the plans had to change, because I don't know, maybe there's a roadblock, so you can't go to the place that you had planned to travel to. So then it's always good to speak to other travelers and to say, oh, where have you just come from? Okay, oh, how was it there? Would you recommend it? And then to make your plan that way. I find that that's been a really helpful plan for me of meeting people along my travels and then taking advice from them, rather than looking on a map or Google, or, you know, planning from a book. It's good to make plans from other people. And to speak to people and say, okay, how was this beach? Was it as nice as it looks in the pictures? And sometimes they'll say, well, I actually recommend you go here, or, oh, when you go to this city, make sure you go and do this. And so it can really be helpful to speak to other travelers, and ask them, and change your plans if they have recommendations. And that's how I've been to some really interesting places that I would not have found out about, other than from meeting somebody in a hostel, and then saying, oh, I just got back from this place, and, oh, okay, where is that? Okay, oh, and those are some of the best ways to travel.
So a part of like traveling, what about working part? Do you have like any advice to give us. We have to have like a skill to make money. Then we will be like able to travel.
Yeah, there are lots of because now many people are digital nomads and they want to work online. There are many different ways to be able to make money online, or many different platforms or websites. And it depends on your skills. But yeah, I think many people, I've met lots of people who work in social media, or they work in graphic design, or they work in programming. And so there are lots of different jobs that people do. I have met lots of people who become coaches to help people to do what they are doing. And yeah, I think just if you can decide on what your skills are, and then just start looking online. There are lots of different groups where people will talk about what jobs they do, and that can be really helpful for finding work online. Or also you can have some faith, or think, okay, well, I will find something along the way. Because when I started traveling, I didn't know about teaching English online. And I met somebody, I think 6 months into my travels, I met somebody who said, oh yes, I teach English to Chinese children. And I thought, oh, okay, that sounds great. I want to work while I travel. And so then I started doing that. And that was, yeah, more than 5 years ago now, maybe 5.5 years ago. So I think even if you're unsure, but you do want to travel, if you can start and meet people along the way, and maybe you will get some ideas while you're doing it as well.
So like we talk about like digital nomad and language learning. So what kind of results or tools do you find helpful for language learning? Do you have like any specific recommendations for Chinese learners?
I think if you can go to, if do you mean Chinese learners of Chinese people learning English?
Yeah, English. Yeah.
I think if you can go to an English-speaking country, then that can make a big difference, as you know, to just immerse yourself in that culture and to try and make friends who speak English, and to practice as much as possible. And yeah, don't be embarrassed. And you can, if you watch TV in that language, or read a book, if you can, start with reading a children's book even. And reading can really help, and look up any words that you don't understand. And yeah, and to practice as much as possible, and obviously take classes that can really help. And yeah, I think just surround yourself in the language as much as possible. Listen to English music, or watch a film and just put subtitles. And when you get to a point where you can understand a lot, you could watch it in English and put English subtitles, and so that you can hear it and see it at the same time. And also, yeah, I find somebody that you can talk to in that language. I think that really helps to be able to speak to a native speaker, and ask them questions. Why do people say this? Why can I not say it like this? And even if you think, oh, I hope I don't get embarrassed, but just ask the question so that the language starts to make more sense, because English and Chinese, they're such different languages. So that it's almost making a mental map of the language from scratch, because you can't say, oh, okay, well, this is like that, because the languages are just so different. But for instance, for me, there are lots of similarities between English and Spanish. So I can say, oh, okay, so this word is like that word, and that's why I would use it like this. But with English and Chinese, you really, it's so different that it's good to ask these questions of why do you say this, or why is it this word order? So ask questions and be curious and have fun with it. If you can, if you find the motivation, it doesn't have to be hard work to study all the time. It can be something fun, and it can be exciting, yeah.
UK is definitely very popular for us to go for studying, and recently the new rank QS rank for universities just released. Have you seen it? No, not yet. Oh, yeah, I think only we us really care about that rank, so it's
Okay.
it's like big news for us. Yeah. And
which universities are up there, are top?
I don't remember, but for UK university, definitely like Cambridge, Oxford. Yeah.
I think if
which university you graduated?
I went to Birmingham City University, and I studied speech and language therapy. So that really helped me to understand language learning and pronunciation and grammar. So that definitely helped me to be a good teacher, to be able to understand my language well in order to teach it. Because a lot of the time, when we learn a language, we don't know the grammar, we don't know why we say things, but I had to learn those things at university. But yeah, I had a very good experience in Birmingham as a student, and there was lots of a good student culture there, because there are 3 universities in Birmingham, and so there was always something interesting happening, or lots of student activities. So yeah, I think that if somebody can study abroad and they want to improve their English, I think England is a or the UK is a very good place to go and to learn.
And personally, I like British accents.
Yeah, they're very different to American accents.
Have you ever assistant Chinese student to apply for universities?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've checked people's applications, and their personal statements. And yeah, there are a lot of Chinese people who do want to study in England, and lots of younger people as well. They say, oh, I really want to go and study in England, and I find lots of people, they want to go back as well when they have studied. Yeah. And then they like you. Yeah, and they or I have some students as well who they have studied in England, and then they go back to China and they want to speak to me to maintain their English so that they don't forget their English, but also because they want to talk about the culture. They want to talk about English things because they miss it, because there lots of times they go back to China and they feel like, oh, people don't understand what it's like over there. I can't talk to people about, what European life. And so they want to have a conversation with me, maybe, once a month, just to talk about their experience and to talk about TV shows or, anything, because they feel like they want to connect back to that culture. Yeah.
Yeah. I got that. Yeah. So the last question is like, what are your future goals or destination you have in mind as a digital nomad?
That's a really good question. I definitely want to. Well, I feel very settled in Mexico, so my plan is to is to continue to teach English and to maybe I really enjoy teaching children and also adults, and I would like to teach more adults as well. And for travel in 2020, I wanted to go to Asia. Yeah, and because of the pandemic with COVID, I didn't go to Asia. So maybe that's something in the next year or 2 years that I would like to go back to Asia. I've visited there maybe 8 years ago and traveled a little bit, but I would like to go to Asia, and that also would help with my teaching, with the time zones, so that I could, just teach more in the evening, and have time in the day to explore the different locations and to see different places. Yeah, as a digital nomad, I find that when I meet other digital nomads, they talk a lot about Bali in Indonesia, and that is a place that lots of people like to go. And so yeah, I hear the names of different places and I think, oh, okay, I think I should visit. So there are lots of places that I would like to go back to. Yeah.
What about China? Do you consider?
I would love to visit China, especially from meeting you and from, making other connections and learning about Chinese culture. I would love to visit and experience it myself. And I feel that from speaking to my Chinese students, I can understand some parts of the culture and the festival days, and I would love to go and visit, and I have so many students who are asking me this, oh, come to China, and you're very welcome to come and visit my country. And I think that's so nice, and I would love to see more. I would love to visit China, if when possible. Yay. Thank you.
Okay, I think today, yeah, we finished our interview.
Okay.
Thank you.
They were great questions. Thank you.